it's really important to have the local knowledge because, you can be in a great suburb in Darwin. There's a good street, but there's also going to be bad streets. So you really need to know the area. I guess what we've seen with some of the interstate buyers agents is that they're not necessarily across the streets to buy in.
Our motto is buy without regrets, and so
if you can buy a property that will serve you for 10 years as opposed to 3 years, that will serve you well. And something
buying a great property today, that's not just what it's about. It's also getting something that could be ripe for improvement when the time is right for that investor or for the next buyer.
You think about, lifestyle, what's important to you? How do you get to work? What do you need for your family? What amenities like parks and shops? Then you look at the budget.
Welcome to Street Secrets. I'm Chris Bates. I'm a mortgage broker since 2013. And in this podcast, we're going to be interviewing Australia's leading buyers agents, ones with decades of experience, have the local insider knowledge on the street, and can really help you with your buying process, no matter whether you're a first home buyer, upgrader, investor. In this podcast, you'll get access to Australia's leading buyers agents' minds every week on a Thursday. What's the word on the street? Welcome to Street Secrets. I'm Chris Bates in the studio today and going to a part of the country that I actually haven't visited. I feel guilty saying that. It's like, I know how beautiful it would be there. It's about trying to go at the right time of the year, and we're going to head up to probably the hottest point of Australia, not so much also in temperature, but also probably in the market right now in 2026. So we're heading up to Darwin. Got Belinda Tennant in the studio. She runs a business called Thrive Property NT. As we just chatted about before coming on air, there's not many buyers agents up there that have been working more than a year or two up there. And so super lucky to have Belinda in the studio today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Chris. And it's the perfect time to be in Darwin, the dry season. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
That's one of my really good mates that I used to live in London a long, long time ago lives up there. And, he keeps telling me, the middle of the year is just sensational up there. And I think I've just got to get the kids up there and get a caravan and check out the whole of NT as well. But before we go, deeper on sort of the local market, I mean, can you just give us a bit of a history on yourself, and how you did you grow up in Darwin? Did you move there? How long you been a BA for? How long you been working around property?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Sydney and worked as a property valuer in Sydney. I moved overseas to the UK and ended up in property management. Was director of a Winkworth property management branch for, it must have been about 6 years. And then moved back to Australia with a husband and a child. I had my daughter in Sydney, and then we moved to the Northern Rivers and then ended up buying a caravan, travelling around Australia. Arrived in Darwin in 2010. And so here we are now. So I started working in valuation again when I was in Darwin, but with young children, I found that I was, doing reports and things after they went to bed or before they woke up in the mornings, and it just wasn't working given the age of the children. So I ended up working with a developer, Sunbuild. They were leasing properties to Impex when the gas project was being built. So I came in and managed that portfolio for them. I was very fortunate when I told them that I wanted to start Thrive Property, that they contracted that portfolio to me. So that's how Thrive started. So as a property management company in about 2017, and we've grown to a small team and then introduced the buyer's agent service when we saw a need in the Darwin market, which was, probably 18 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, there's lots I can go on there. Is it a common story? You've been there since 2010, right? Last 15 years. Have you said of the people, they weren't, not from Darwin, but they do visit it and then they fall in love with the sort of lifestyle up there, and, it's sort of like the caravan sort of expats arrive. And is that what you see in terms of a lot of the people now that you know?
Yeah, and Darwin's so transient, so there's always people coming and going. Yes, a lot do end up staying fall in love with it.
How's the value? I mean, that's
Yeah.
a pretty decent background coming into a buyer's agency. I mean, we've had lots of people on the show, a lot of different, so there's not right or wrong, but how does that sort of help you today? I mean, obviously it would have helped you with, your property management business, but, when you think about when you're actually helping to buy property for clients now, how does it help you?
Yeah, I feel it's a significant advantage to have that background. Although I'm no longer a practicing valuer, I do use those skills to find the right properties for my clients. So I will do an appraisal for each property that I look at to determine what I think the value of it is, so that we can then use that when negotiating on properties. And I'll also do a rental appraisal, so we know the yields. We're not relying on the agents providing that information to us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too much deeper on you, but there's so much good stuff there as well. I mean, the sort of the Sunbuild time, understanding the sort of, I guess all the projects and the, the mining impact on the sort of the town. How does that sort of, and how does that translate in 2026? Like, how big of it is it, understanding, what's happening in that world and, the housing needs?
Yeah, the NT is very reliant on major projects, so it does have a significant effect on what's happening. So, for example, in 2013, the portfolio I was managing for Sunbuild, it was in a newly built complex, built in 2013, and most of those were owned by interstate investors. Rental returns were great. And that followed through until, I guess, the Impex project was completed, so the construction phase, and then the market completely slowed. So rent returns fell, property values fell, but now we've seen the values climb up again. Yeah.
What do you reckon's driving that in the recent times? Is there a lot of major projects happening? Is there a lot of population growth? Is a lot of just interstate investors? What's driving it?
Definitely the interstate investors. There has been, I guess, in the last financial year, a 1.7% increase in the population, which is great for Darwin because it's something that they've always battled with. Yeah, attracting people to Darwin. And
on a number wise, what's the population now? Like what is that increase? Is it?
So in Darwin, it's probably around 160,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess it's more.
So a couple of thousand people moved there last year, sort of thing. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And if you're saying like, let's say 2 people per dwelling, or maybe even 2.5. So maybe there's a need for and some are buying and some are sort of renting, right? So there's been a little bit extra demand for sort of rentals, I guess, because the population's gone up a bit.
The rental market is so strong at the moment. I was just looking this morning, the Greater Darwin region had approximately 200 properties available for rent. So we are seeing, 40, 50 people registering for open houses. So very strong demand.
What do you think is causing that? Is it? I mean, it sounds like there's a little bit of population growth, but is there anything else that's really? Do you think it's just a lack of investment for so long that it's just been a very tightening in rental pool of properties, and it's just all of a sudden that there's too many renters, I guess.
Yeah, and perhaps people are learning more about the Darwin lifestyle. Perhaps they're wanting to experience it for themselves. Cost of living in other cities is really high.
Yeah. Is there some major projects building in terms of, in the mining area? Is there some major things that, are really big events in Northern Territory?
Yeah, we're probably looking at the Beetaloo Basin project and also some mining.
Yeah. And are they expecting a lot more people to come to construct it? And then, because that's sometimes the challenge, right? There's a lot in construction phase, and then once it's up and running, the workforce needs are, potentially quite different. Is it, when you think about the local community, are they sort of excited because there's some big infrastructure builds happening? Is that?
Yeah, I think people are very optimistic. I've found probably in the last 18 months, the optimism in Darwin has improved. Darwin's always been, or the NT, a place of opportunity. Also, I guess our proximity to Asia, which the government is seeing with making Darwin such an important defence place or city as well. So, yeah, we're the place for opportunity.
Yeah, right. So some defence spending potentially, and then there's some mining that's happening. And that proximity in Asia is always an interesting one, right? Because when people are leaving the East Coast, they're flying for like 5-6 hours and they're like, oh, we haven't even left Australia yet. Yeah. And, you're just sort of in Darwin, you're 3 hours to Bali or whatever it might be. It's if that, I think it's a big draw card, right? I mean, what about the local economy? If you're not working in mining or you're not working, say, infrastructure sort of stuff, how's the sort of, is the city sort of doing quite well there? Is there job opportunities? Is unemployment quite low, or is it a bit mixed?
So many jobs. The NT government is probably the largest employer of people in the territory. Plenty of work available, not enough people to fill positions.
Okay. So locally it's quite, consumer confidence is quite high and there's jobs. So, you mentioned prior to coming on, it was something anyone listening to this would know that, we've been talking about this for a long time, and the budget's changed things a lot. It'd be interesting to see what changes in Darwin because yields are just so high up there, right? Like it's the one sort of place in the country where you can get, 6+ yields. But how have the sort of, said the interstate investors, a lot of them would find it hard to buy when they've got boots on the ground. How's the sort of the borderless buyers agent? And, when you sort of been there for 15 years, sort of, how you been feeling watching what they're buying and where they're buying?
Yeah, I feel it's really important to have the local knowledge because, you can be in a great suburb in Darwin, but then, there's a good street, but there's also going to be bad streets. So you really need to know the area. So I guess what we've seen with some of the interstate buyers agents is that they're not necessarily across the streets to buy in or the locations to buy in.
Is there sort of some classic sort of mistakes that they're often making, or is it besides the wrong parts of the areas? Is there certain pockets that because I think you've seen it from a real rental point of view, right? And also a lot of the people that leave your tenancies probably go on and buy. They probably stay related to the business in some sense sometimes, and so. You probably also know what the buyers want because they, sometimes your tenants leaving or they're selling a property because they want to buy a home or whatever it might be. But what are you sort of seeing when you think about the local demand, like the local buyer, because that drives prices the most, right? It's the person who wants to own the property to live in rather than the interstate investor that's based on rental returns. So like, where are the investor mindset going wrong with what the local buyer sort of really wants?
Well, I guess the local buyer is wanting more of a lifestyle property and in the right location, where the interstate investors, I'll give you an example of a property that was purchased for an interstate investor by an out-of-state buyer's agent. It was a corner house, low fence, across the road from a park, public toilets and local shops. The tenants had been broken into numerous times. They've often found people passed out in their front yard, and the security of the property wasn't secure. The windows weren't locked, and not necessarily a property that I would be looking at for my clients.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So you've kind of highlighted just some of the positioning of a property within a suburb, and the security can be might not be a big issue in some other parts of other suburbs and other cities. It's obviously a nationwide issue, but there might be certain pockets where it matters a lot, and it might be that's what you're highlighting here. And at home, even if they put a big fence up, they might not want to do that, right? And they might go, I just don't want to be in this pocket, and you just really that if you try to sell it one day, you basically ruled out the home buyer or anyone, potentially they might even be looking in that pocket. And so, I think you might go, great, I can rent it because there's only 200 houses for rent in Darwin. But even that might be constantly changing tenants, right? Because they're not,
Yeah.
they don't feel safe and secure. I guess when you think about from an aspirational point of view, or the people, I guess, within Darwin, whether they've got businesses or in, higher paying roles in mining or whatever it might be, where are they sort of gravitating to? Like, where is sort of the premium sort of pockets of Darwin, and what really drives those pockets to be seen as more valuable?
Yeah, so Fanny Bay, Larrakia, close to the city, close to the water, close to the sailing club, the museum, the ski club, the trailer boat club, beautiful lifestyle. Then I would say Brinken is a traditional suburb over towards Casuarina coastal area, so close to the beach, good size blocks, close to the hospital, the university. So that's a lovely area. And with medical staff coming in and things, I guess we're seeing interest in Muirhead and Lyons, which are newer suburbs. 2000 perhaps 2008 and 2009 for Lyons, and then Muirhead's a little younger. But yeah, so more modern homes, but very close to the hospital. So we do see strong demand for medical staff for those properties. Young doctors and nurses coming in are drawn to Nightcliff Rapid Creek, particularly along Casuarina Drive, because of the lifestyle. You've got the Nightcliff Foreshore. So, they run the park run on Saturday mornings, cafes, pop-ups. Yeah, so it's a lovely place to be.
Yeah, so there's some sort of pockets, beach pockets, I guess, and then the inner city sort of pocket as well, which is sort of, much probably less likely that people are selling in those areas. They're sort of buying it sort of there. I mean, they might be a bit transient, so they're selling because they're maybe moving and stuff, but they're not selling because of lifestyle reasons, let's say. Is there schooling issues anyway, where there's just a lack of maybe, a gap in public schooling or a real gravitation towards certain private schooling? Like, is there pockets where, if people have got sort of teenage kids that they really want to be within?
Yeah, so a lot of people want to be in the zone for Darwin Middle School, which is, a government school. But I guess the two main private schools, I believe, would be Essington, which is over Nightcliff Way, and then Hailbury Rendell, which is in Berrima.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it seen as, if someone was, financially able to afford it, they really are gravitating to those private schools? Or is it the middle school, quite confident that, that people are, yeah.
Both, but the middle school performs very well as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a, I think, because it does matter, I think it's, as the population go, more people stay, schooling's, very high on people's sort of list. Is there sort of, when people think about Darwin, obviously climate's a bit unique, compared to East Coast or, West Coast. Summers and winters are a bit different, like we said at the start. How does that sort of play out in terms of like internal sort of, what do people want from a property point of view? Like, do they want different aspects? How do they think about, what's a dream sort of, the block and the view, and like, what are some of the attributes that people just really gravitate to and really want?
Yeah, definitely a swimming pool. A lot of people want that. I love tropical homes, so that'll be your elevated homes with the louver windows and things. But the people coming from interstate, so if they're relocating and it's a rental property, they may not know how to manage the humidity within those properties, as well as tropical gardens that generally come along with the elevated homes. So they find it difficult to manage those tropical gardens, difficult to manage the humidity in the houses. And so I feel locals have a great understanding for that. But for an investment, you'd probably be looking for something that's more standard, that southerners might be able to cope with. So you're maybe a ground level home, obviously split system air conditioners, low maintenance gardens. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Where's these sort of pockets that are a bit more tropical? Like, is it those same pockets? It's just, there's a few streets that are a bit higher, is it a whole other pocket
It's all through,
scattered?
yeah, all scattered. Northern suburbs, Fanny Bay. There's some amazing
Yeah, okay.
tropical homes. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's parts of suburbs that maybe don't get the sort of attention they deserve. You can feel people have been there for a while and they're like, no, I want to be up there. I want the greenery. But maybe there's issues with managing the heat in them without just putting the aircon on, I guess. Okay, cool. So then in terms of the local sort of, is there any issues that you find, like a lot of cities have got issues with flooding, or they've got issues with stormwater, or they've got issues, with there's a lot of noise, or is there pockets of sort of Darwin where, I guess people don't know what they don't know, then all of a sudden, or times of years, it's really challenging to live in that pocket, that it might not be as much breezes. How do you think about the sort of city from, different challenges, not saying pointing out different areas or pockets, but just how it can change?
Yeah, so some areas might have, you'll hear people complaining about too many midges in those areas, so they can't enjoy being out on their balcony or in their outdoor entertaining area all the there are some areas that would be in storm surge zones, but I haven't, in the time that I've been here, I wouldn't say that that's been a significant issue. Yeah, I mean, you will get flooding across roads, but at times, but it's part and parcel of the wet season. Cyclones, if you're closer to the coast, then you might experience more of, more trees down and that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, but nothing major there. What about sort of the obviously there's 100, development's always happening, and the population's increasing. Is there certain pockets where a lot more is happening, new housing estates, or there was a bit of an apartment boom back in the day. It was a cool thing to buy an off-the-plan apartment in Darwin, and there's obviously some challenges for those investors.
Yeah.
But how's the sort of city going to grow? Is it just because it's quite landlocked, right? Because you are on a bit of a sort of a peninsula sort of thing going on. Is it sort of the house and land package in the fringes? Is there any other sort of pockets where they're cutting blocks up? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, Zicoli, which is in Palmerston. In recent years, there's been significant growth in that area. Yep, definitely Zicoli. North Crest, which is near Berrima, that subdivision has been happening for a few years and is ending. And then there's a few other pockets. I think Lee Point, which is towards Lyons and Muirhead, which I mentioned earlier, being close to the hospital. That's been a little bit controversial because of the land that it's on. But yeah, that has been a subdivision. So there's little bits and pieces everywhere. Units in the CBD, construction probably stopped around 2015. And then, we've really only started to see things happen starting again, slowly.
Yeah. I mean, you've got, obviously, like you said, really tight rental supply, which is kind of like the vacancy rates, kind of like the thing to be really concerned about, really, but you have got really high yields. Like, if you think about Darwin over the next few years, is there anything that, how do you feel about sort of the growth in prices? I mean, is it getting to, because it has started to go up, are locals starting to feel like it's getting unaffordable in terms of from an owner-occupier view, and do you think that a lot of the growth has to be driven by investors competing and pushing prices up? How do you see the market sort of playing out over the next few years?
Yeah, well, the interstate investors definitely drove the market up. I know that a lot of owner-occupiers wanting to buy were getting a little bit frustrated because they were starting to miss out on properties. And but then I think the owner-occupiers have recovered from that. They decided they weren't going to be missing out, so they paid a little bit more. I feel that the owner-occupier market is going quite well now. And particularly in those higher price brackets. So I guess I'm talking around, 900,000, a million kind of bracket. We're seeing owner-occupiers upsizing. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they've now got a bit of equity. They know they're going to stay. They see the value in the next sort of forever home sort of move. And if they don't do it now, they're more worried that they won't. And, they could miss the boat a little bit. So there's a little bit of that. The interstate buyers, because of the yields are being so high and the vacancy rates, do you see that continuing, even though the budget's happened? It's one of those places where the negative cash flow, isn't too bad. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, there is still interest from interstate investors. However, it has slowed. But then, if we're looking towards positively gearing, well, Darwin is affordable to buy in. The rental yield, fantastic. So you've got more of that opportunity for positive gearing when you might have in other capital cities. Yeah.
From the other side, like the risk side, is there anything that sort of makes you feel a little bit nervous that, there's something coming in a few years' time, as in end of a mining contract or anything? Is there anything that is sort of, causing a bit of a flatter period, or do you feel like that the city's kind of going through its next sort of, evolution, I guess, and there's nothing that's sort of more temporary?
No, everyone's still very positive how Darwin's performing. Obviously, the property market's cyclical, so,
Yeah.
you expect the ups and downs as normal, but yeah, we're still...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that's obviously tourism's quite a big part of it, right, as well? And as you found that over the last 5 years, obviously holiday at home, people want to do, not just go to Europe, they wanted to potentially go to Darwin in winter. Has that become like a growing big part of the, it's almost, it's on the map now, and the sort of cat's out of the bag?
Yeah, they definitely want to be in Darwin in the dry season. So traditionally, we've seen a lot of grey nomads come up for the dry season. So they, get the best of both worlds, don't they? Time in up, missing out on the winters down south. And then since COVID, we also saw an increase in people wanting to travel to Darwin. I would say this year tourism has probably slowed a little, and would be due to the cost of living, fuel.
Cost of living, yeah.
Thing, yeah.
Is there any pockets outside, like, 20, 30, 50 an hour, 2 hours outside of Darwin where, people feel like they want to live in that pocket just because of some type of real tangible lifestyle benefit, but then they come to Darwin and they live there because of views or types of, or is it really people, if they're going to live there, they're going to want to live in those pockets we spoke about before?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So there's no sort of commutable sort of towns or anything that people really gravitate. Yeah.
And no. So probably the next main town is Catherine, which is 3 hours down the road, down the Stuart High.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, that's good, because that answers all the and then from a big, business point of view and the wealth within this, obviously we spoke about doctors, we spoke about obviously people in the mining area and things like that. Is there any sort of, major sort of other things that sort of, from a business sort of financial point of view, or that, construction sounds like it's coming back a little bit for resi. So like, is there any other major employers? You've obviously got a uni up there as well. Is there any other?
Mainly defence and government. They're the...
Defence and government. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, you mentioned you came in buyer's agent about 18 months ago. I think you said at the you got a friend who's also one up there. Does a lot of holiday letting. Yeah.
Lena. So I call her the queen of Airbnb.
Okay.
Darwin.
Yeah.
Specialises in the luxury market, but she'll also do buyer's agency work specifically for people looking to buy a property for the short-term accommodation or Airbnb market. Yeah.
Yeah, that they might. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then, but from your understanding, like, when you started 18 months ago, was there, besides the queen of Airbnb and you, was there anyone else sort of? No.
And there wasn't really a need either. I believe, 2013 to probably about 2016, 17, there was a buyer's agent in Darwin, and then they exited the market when there wasn't a need.
Yeah, so that explains it. And then, but, in the last probably 12, 18 months, have you sort of seen, people fly in, fly out, BAs a little bit? Has that been becoming more prevalent? Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. I believe they drove the market a lot.
Okay, yeah. So you see that the pure velocity, because I mean, how many listings is there roughly? Usually, I mean, you mentioned 200 rental properties. What's the size of the housing market in Darwin generally listing?
So if I look back on when things were, the market was slow, so that would have been 2018, 2019, there were probably, 850 properties available for rent at any time.
Well, I'm just having a quick look on here. I mean, it's usually around 1,500 properties on the market, really. And then that's dropped to about 500-600 ish. And so obviously they snapped up everything they could, and people have still listed, but they're just been able to go off the market. So it's created this sort of, well, if I don't buy now, other stuff won't come on, because it's been sort of now a good little 12, 18 months or something of lower listings, and it kind of makes people feel a little bit anxious. I mean, so you're only talking really 500 properties to 1,000 that it's sort of, and all of a sudden for quite a few buyers agencies with quite a big number of clients, it can very quickly snap up a lot of those. Is that's what you got more of expectations that they're the ones who have been taken off the market? So you've seen this growing rental pool. Yeah.
And lots of off-market. They've been buying up a lot of off-market properties as well. But now, since the budget announcement, I guess that off-market sales has probably reduced, and the agents are needing to list them more. Yeah.
How do they deal with you? Do you think a bit different? Do they sort of communicate some of their concerns? I mean, they're obviously acting for the vendor, so it's their job to get things sold, right? Like let's be real, that's what their job is to do. And so, but how do they feel sometimes off? And treating you, they've known you for 15 years. You're a colleague, with a property management business. So I'm sure you know them all very well.
Yeah, I still had to keep in touch and chase them up for their off markets and things. Whereas now I'm finding they're starting to come to me, or without me asking. So I feel that they're having to work a little bit harder for their sales. Yeah. And that since the budget announcements.
Do you think they treat you a bit differently, though? Just because you've been there for a long time, you're a local, you sort of, they know Belinda won't look at this stuff, but, I know she'll probably have buyers who are interested in this stuff. They don't try to sell you they're wasting their time, right? Like, they know that you're not going to explore those type of properties, and they sort of give you preference on the better properties. Like, there's a bit of a, because they know they're going to be, better long-term relationships. Like, there's always a bit of that stuff that happens with agencies. It's just they're not only building relationships, they want to get the result for the vendor, but they also are conscious that they're going to be around for a long time. They don't want to be working with someone just for 2 minutes.
That's right. And because they know I have the local knowledge, they're not going to present the rubbish to me. Yeah.
It's been an awesome chat. It is an interesting part of Australia and the world, and obviously we both sort of spoke around the benefits of investing up there. So it's not just as doing the wrong thing and they're just buying somewhere that's, just because it's high yield. And it might still be an attractive place, but even within there, there's at some point markets do slow, and, you start to realize, did you buy in the better pocket? Can you, do you get capital growth compared? And so it's if you are going there, you want to get the best bang for your buck. And I think, knowing, what the locals want, the areas to be, potentially spending a bit more and getting a lot more. And so I think you've been super safe hands chatting to Belinda and the team there, and I appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, thanks so much, Chris. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening today. We hope you got lots of value out of it. If you'd like to speak to our guest today, there's links in the show notes on how you can get in contact. And if you're buying your first home, upgrading, renovating, or need any finance-related queries, obviously we'd love to help. There's links in the show notes to us as a mortgage broker, and we look forward to next week's episode.